Hello Avatar nerds, welcome back to another Avatar video. Today we will be discussing different bending styles and ranking them by how strong I think they are. So let's dive in. These are the bending styles, and yeah. Waterbending, it's in a tier. Honestly, I think waterbending is the weakest of the four main elements. Waterbending is more versatile than some of the other elements, with being able to change states between liquid and solid easily. I also feel like water isn't around that much because humans live on land, and yes, a lot of them live near water and need water, and most of the earth is made of water, and they drink water, but that's not as abundant as earth, air, or fire for most humans. Then we have firebending. It's in a tier above waterbending. One advantage of firebending that you can create fire out of nothing, just like Iroh did in The Last Airbender. Cough, Last Airbender. The only place where you can't firebend is really cold places like the South Pole or the North Pole. You basically can always have fire on hand. Hopefully not in your hand because, you get burned. One major drawback of firebending is there's not many defensive moves that you can use in firebending. It's mainly made of aggressive moves, so if you're defending yourself, then firebending's not your go-to. Earthbending, a tier above firebending. Wow, okay. Earthbending is very versatile and can be used for a lot of things, including structures. Also, if you're having a battle on land, you can control what's under people's feet. For example, you can launch them into the air. You can send a giant spike through their body and impale them. And if you're General Fong, you can literally bury them alive and make them suffocate. That's not broken. And then we have airbenders, are the top of the tier. So, you might be questioning why I'm putting airbenders at the top, given that the airbenders were wiped out by the firebenders, which I put lower than them. But the only reason they were wiped out is because airbenders were all pacifists and they didn't want to fight. I mean, Zahir has used air asphyxiation before and, killed the Earth Queen, and also Yang Chan has used air asphyxiation before. And combustion benders, which have really good lung capacity, because you need lung capacity for combustion bending, and the combustion benders are even trained to breathe thin air and all of that. And it's asphyxiation is a very weird word. It's hard to spell. Energy bending, D tier. You might be like, energy bending should be top of S tier because you can take someone's bending away, but that's only if you have met the specific lion turtle and it deems you worthy of energy bending, and if you get close to your opponent, and if they don't decide to fire back with a counter move that might kill you at such close range. At that point, you probably already won the battle, so it doesn't even matter. Then we have lava bending, S tier. I feel like a lot of people say lava bending is slow. If you're one of those people, go back to a clip of lava bending and tell me if you think it's slow anymore. Then come back to this video. Lava bending is actually very fast and very deadly. It's like firebending, but sticky. You can extinguish a flame, but you're not extinguishing a piece of lava. Also, lava benders can literally turn the ground that you're standing on to lava, which means you're dead. Also, Ghazan literally took down an entire air temple with lava bending alone in 10 minutes. Duh. Blood bending, top of S tier. You know how I just said lava bending was OP? Well, blood bending's even more OP. Bloodbending means you can literally control people, like every limb in their body, even if it's only during a full moon. But also, you don't even need a full moon, because, like, Yukon can do it without a full moon. Same with Amon. Same with, like, they can all do it without a full moon. And it's like, what the hell? It's like, it means that if you're Yukon, he controlled the whole courtroom and even bloodbended the Avatar. Also, if you're Amon, that means you can take people's bending away permanently. No bending, you're a non-bender. Unless you have the Avatar energy bends you, but like we already know energy bending sucks, so plant bending, C tier. I think it's cool, like I like plant bending, but it's not good strength wise. You just have to be around vines in a swamp. Vines are pretty weak. They can be cut easily with just a knife. I mean, we've seen Sokka cut them with a knife. Kind of cooked. Unless you're like Hugh, which can bend all the vines around, plant god. Then you have a lightning bending. Is the B of the tier. Lightning bending is cool, but it takes such a long wind up time that I feel like it's not worth it unless you're in the Legend Korra, where it's basically instant. It's very strong and can be deadly, but also your opponent knows lightning redirection basically does nothing. So then we have spiritual projection. Bottom of C tier. Spiritual projection is like seismic sense, but worse. Because seismic sense is seismic sense is instantaneous, but spiritual projection, you have to sit down and focus. And for some reason, it's only an airbending move. The only good thing about spiritual projection is that you can basically go anywhere in the world and you can find specific people. But other than that, you're not using this in combat, and also not be useful because how long it takes. And the only person in the world that can do this is Jinora, so. Bending of sand, or sand bending. Same thing. B tier. Okay. Sand bending is pretty powerful because, just like earthbenders, they can bury people underground, but easier because sand is looser and they can make it into quicksand. The main drawback of sand bending is that sand can only be found in a couple deserts and beaches, but like if you're an earthbender, you can turn earth into sand. Sand is just small rocks. Like, other than that, sandbending is actually pretty strong and powerful. Also, it takes some aspects of airbending. We'll be able to use sand sailors. And if sandbending could be used in more places, I think it would actually be better than earthbending. I mean, it might be a bit of personal bias, but honestly, I like sandbenders a lot. But, shut up. Okay, metal bending. Top of a tier. Top of a tier. Above airbending. Really strong and able to throw metal shards super fast and super like big chunks of metal. And main drawback of metal bending is metal is very rare unless you live in a city. But the one drawback that is if you face another metal bender, they can bend. If you're wearing metal to like use, then if you face another metal bender, then they can crush you. So, but if you're in a city, metal's basically everywhere, so you don't need to wear metal. I mean, Republic City is pretty big. Combustion bending, middle of but here. Right there. Combustion bending is really good, and it's really effective at killing people, but has no defensive capabilities at all. Yeah. So you're trying to be defensive, but then you're out of luck. Also, combustion bending, it has an almost 100% mortality rate. Rest in peace, Combustion Man and Pali and Yingsu and all those people. Most people die from combustion bending because combustion bending is extremely dangerous, so it's not actually that good. But I mean, it is really good at killing. Okay, now we have the opposite of killing, healing. Top of C tier. Turns out killing is better than healing. Think about it. Healing is good if you get an injury, but most of the time it can't really be used that well in the battlefield because it's definitely a defensive move, and it was like opposing problem with fire and like opposite problem with fire and like combustion bending. They cannot use it as offensive at all. You don't want to heal your opponent. Unless you do, I don't know. You might want counter argument that healing brought back Aang from the dead. But also that was spirit water, and spirit water can literally only be found in one place in the entire world, so unless you live like right next to the spirits, then sucks to suck. Death is permanent. Glass bending, bottom of B tier. Might be like, what's glass bending? And when it's been used? Good question. It was actually used by Avatar Kyoshi once in the Kyoshi novels, where she bent glass shards out of her body. The main problem with this is we've only seen it once, or I mean technically read it once, before, like ever, so we don't know how useful it really is. What could be pretty useful in Republic City, where there's a lot of windows, and windows are made of glass, if you didn't know, and you could use people's windows to make glass shards. Also, glass is not that abundant, and it's even less abundant than metal. So, seismic sense. Made of the beer tier. No, B tier. Are you having beer with your seismic sense? Find the beer. Seismic sense is like 3-dimensional vision. Most like vision is 3-dimensional, but like you can see in every direction. The main downside is you cannot see color. It's like gray and white waves, but you can see from every direction, even behind you, with very good accuracy. Enough accuracy to see a trail of ants from multiple feet away. I mean, how do you do that, Toph? I mean, seriously, especially without color. Then we have mud bending. Right there. Middle of a tier, or a bit of the lower side, but I think it's cool that both earthbenders and waterbenders can mud bend. For waterbenders, it's like more solid water bending, and for earthbenders, it's like more liquidy earth bending, kind of. So it's got a nice mix between liquid and solid, and can be very versatile. It's not always the best for fighting, because mud doesn't really hurt that much, but it can be good for turning the ground under your opponent to mud and making them sink in the mud. Mud can make you sink and slippery and all that stuff. Then we have flight. No, not a plane. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's a Zahir. Mid B tier. We have quite a few stuff in like mid B tier. A bit of like there, I would say. Flight is strong when paired with airbending, but without airbending, it's a lot less useful because basically it's like a guy that's mildly harder to catch compared to when you have airbending with flight, then it's almost impossible to catch because airbending and flying fit well together. So if it was flight and airbending together, then I would put it in S tier. But if it was just flight, then I probably would have put it on C tier. So I put it in the middle of B tier. That's a compromise. Because all that. Spirit bending, sadly, C tier. Sadness. Sadly, sadness, C tier. I hate spirit bending. Like, it's just the worst thing about Legend of Korra, like, and that's saying something because Legend of Korra has a lot of bad things, but it can be useful at times every 10,000 years of time, in fact, for like maybe like 10 minutes, but you can turn into a giant spirit kaiju, which I know is a very long time when you can turn into a kaiju, but like a kaiju is a kaiju, even when it's only every 10,000 years. Spirit bending is pretty powerful. You can even make spirits good or evil, whatever you want. Most of the time it's to make it good, but I don't know. This Unalaq guy is kind of sketchy. But this is my completed tier list. So yeah, post comments, like, comment, subscribe, comment on anything that you think should change on the tier list, and you can also maybe make your own tier list. This tier is called Avatar Bending, but it actually has all the sub bending elements tier list maker. But goodbye, Avatar nerds, and have a good day and stuff.
Blood bending.